Rube, today was like Christmas for me.
Dave loves this stuff. I like this stuff. It was fun being in practice. Dave loves this.
I'll be honest. I was really excited today.
We're all walking out to practice. So there's a big gate, and right around, I guess it was about 12:50. They opened the gate, and the media can go in. So we're all walking in, and there goes Dave, like the road runner, with his little notebook, running out to be the first one at practice. And you were out there.
I will be for every practice they have. It's fun though. It's our first chance. Now, they've had other OTAs, but today was our first time there, and it was a lot of fun. This is the part where I should mention this is the Eagle Eye podcast. He's Reuben Frank. I'm Dave Zangaro. It was a little steamy out there today, Rube.
Yeah, you look at your phone and it says it's 78, 79 degrees. You're like, no, it's a nice kind of moderate day. You get out there for a couple hours, and it was steamy. It was a hot one, but hey, it's Eagle football weather, as they say.
It was. And look, this is a pretty short practice. It was about 55 minutes long. So they also had a walkthrough earlier in the day that we weren't allowed to watch. So they're getting work in. And we've talked about the way they're handling the spring. They're just not going to do a ton on field in practice. They're not going to exert themselves too much. But there were still things to observe. And I thought we gained something out of watching practice today.
Oh, there's no question. I mean, for every minute you watch, you learn something about this team, no matter what they're doing. That's definitely true.
Yeah. So I have some observations in front of me. We'll go through these.
Dave has 300 observations.
I wrote down everything.
From a 1 hour practice.
Then we also want to talk about the play calling structure the Eagles have in place going into year 2 under this coaching staff. Some of the front office shakeups. We have some more information along that front. And then we want to talk about Jordan Davis a little bit, the first round pick, who's going to play an awful lot this year. But Rube, let's start with the observations. I think the biggest thing we wanted to see was who was at right guard, because they have their options, but it seems like Isaac Seumalo is going to get the first crack at that job.
It seems that way, and we didn't even know until today if he was cleared. We just didn't know if he was cleared from that Liz Frank injury. Last year was a knee, and this past year was a Liz Frank in his foot. Sprain. It's a very serious injury, but he was out there. His hair was out there, and it looks like he's going to get the first crack at right guard, which makes sense. He's got the most experience. He started 43 games, started a couple games at right guard as a rookie in 16 when Brandon Brooks didn't play 2 weeks in the middle of the season. He's been exclusively left guard since then. He started 17. They got benched for Wiz, and then Wiz started 18. He got benched for Isaac, and then Isaac played all year in 19, all 16 games he started, and then the last 2 years he played 9 games in 20, and just 3 games last year because of injuries. So he's been the left guard when healthy since the middle of the 18 season. Just being healthy has been the issue. Obviously, the way Dickerson played at left guard, Isaac wasn't getting that job back, so he gets first crack at right guard. And you think Sue is also in the mix. Jack Driscoll can play right guard. They've had 7 different right guards. I wonder if you could name them all since opening day of 2020. I'm not going to ask you, but
do you want me to? 7 guards?
Go for it.
I
just mentioned a couple of them. So
yeah. Well, Brandon Brooks did play
2 games in 20.
Yeah. Nate Herbig.
Or this past year. Yeah.
Jack Driscoll, Landon Dickerson, Sua. What am I missing?
Sua's only start was in the playoff game against Tampa.
Yeah.
At right guard.
A
couple games at left guard. 2 more.
I
don't know how you could forget them. No, 3 more. 3 more.
Oh. Very obvious?
Yeah. Well, 2 of them are obvious. One of them's going to be in the Hall of Fame.
Okay. JP.
JP's one.
Oh, Big V?
One of them, not Big V. No, he was gone by 2020. But this guy is still in the league. I believe he's with the Colts now.
Matt Pryor.
And the other one is Jack Armstrong. He started that Dallas game last year. So
Jack Anderson.
Jack Armstrong is a different guy.
Yeah.
So anyway, the point being that was really compelling radio right there, or podcasting, whatever you want to call But yeah, the point being that right guard's been really unsettled. And, Isaac is a good player when he's healthy. I think he's a solid guy. It's just staying healthy has been the problem.
Yeah, I think in the court of public opinion, he's been unfairly judged by his early career struggles, because he improved a lot, and toward the third, fourth year of his career is a pretty good player. He just can't stay healthy, and that's been a big issue for him. It makes sense to me, but he's such a weird person on this team because he's either going to start, but you can make the case that he should be the starter at right guard. You can also make the case that he shouldn't even be on the team because of his salary, which isn't exorbitant, but certainly not a backup salary. He needs to start to make that salary worth it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. They can save. I think it's about $1.8 million if they do cut him. If they cut him now, obviously it's after June 1st. They would save, I believe, $5 million total over the next 2 years, 5.6 maybe. But I think I don't know. I keep going back and forth on it. I like Sua. I think Sua's solid. Isaac, if Isaac plays 16 games, 17 games and starts at a good level, he's worth $5.5 million, $6 million, whatever
definitely.
he's making.
I think it will be Jack Driscoll if it's not Malu.
Yeah, and we've gone back and forth on this. I think they like Driscoll as a swing guy.
Yeah.
You could be right. It could be Driscoll. I think Driscoll's also had his injury issues. He hasn't been able to stay healthy either. So weird. They cut Herbig. Brandon Brooks retired. So it's really, I think it's Driscoll, Sua, or Isaac. And, I think Cam Jurgens can play guard, but I don't think he's a guard center. I think he's a center who, if you really had to, could play guard. He's too small to be a full-time guard, I would think. Maybe one day he'll have that. I think he can get you through a game in an emergency. I'm sure he could handle it. But I think they want to mainly rep him at center and have him be the backup center.
Yeah. You're probably right there. So the one important thing to note is that we didn't see everyone out there today. There were some notable absences, especially on the offensive line. So this was the first team offensive line, and this is just in position drills because they didn't go 11s. Andre Dillard was at left tackle because Jordan Mailata wasn't there. You had Dickerson at left guard. You had Jurgens at center because no Kelsey. Malu at right guard, and then Driscoll at right tackle because of no Lane. So Malu, I think it speaks to the fact that he was at right guard first, that he's probably getting a chance there, and Shane Steichen seemed to indicate that too. But one of two competitors potentially for that job were in other positions with that starting line today. So it's a little tougher to kind of figure it out.
Right. If Lane was there and Driscoll could have been at right guard, who knows?
Yeah.
But Driscoll had to play right guard because Lane wasn't there. So, yeah, you don't want to – look, we don't know. Shane was asked about it, and the first name he brought up, the only name he brought up was Isaac. He said, Isaac's back. He's healthy. It looks good. And we'll start there. He said, we're having those conversations now. So I don't think it's etched in stone, certainly, but I think Isaac will get the first crack at it.
Yeah, I think you're right. All right, you want to go through some of these other observations?
Yeah, what do you got
today? First team defense, and this is just 7-on-7, so they're in nickel. They didn't bring over Hassan Reddick at that Sam, so they're in nickel, and not many surprises here. Most of it we knew. So Darius Slay on one side, James Bradbury on the other, Avante Maddox as the nickel, Anthony Harris and Marcus Epps as the safeties. I guess I had some questions about whether or not Kayvon Wallace would get any run with the first team. He's not going to. Marcus Epps is a starter. The linebackers were the position I wanted to see. Who did they have out there? And for the most part, with the first team today, it was TJ Edwards and Kaiser White. Although there was literally one rep during 7-on-7s where Nakobe Dean was out there. And he's so young and he's so new to this that I think they're going to bring him along slowly. And I think it's going to be fun to watch that progression as we get into training camp later this summer, because I'd imagine we're going to see that role continue to increase.
Yeah, I would think so too. I do think I've been thinking about this. I think TJ is going to have a pretty significant role in this defense for a couple reasons. I think he's a good player, and I just think there's going to be times where having Nakobe and TJ makes the most sense. I think there's going to be times where Nakobe and Kaiser are going to be out there. I think there's going to be a lot of different combinations depending on the down and distance, the opponent, the situation, the opponent's tendencies. So I do think I think there's a place on this defense for TJ Edwards. I don't think he'll play as much as he did last year, second half of last year when he's basically playing every snap. But I think he'll have a role. I think it'll be a fairly significant one.
Yeah, and we've talked about this. I think Nakobe's going to end up playing Mike and Will at times, and they'll kind of rotate a little bit. And it's a lot. It's ambitious for a rookie to say, hey, learn two positions, be the signal caller on defense. But I think he can handle it. And, I mean, we'll find out if he can handle it because you're right. I mean, they're going to mix and match a little bit. And, heck, there might even be some times where TJ and Kaiser are out there at the same time.
Sure. Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. But I think, and I think I said this a couple of weeks ago, I think Nakobe's going to end up with the most snaps of the linebackers.
Yeah, I said that too. I think you're right.
When all said and done, yeah.
Yeah.
But he's a really smart kid, and
we saw Davion mix in a little bit on the first team too.
Yeah, Davion Taylor
in place of Kaiser, which makes sense because he's kind of a prototypical Will linebacker.
Right. So I think there's a lot to learn there about, you have a lot of new pieces there at linebacker. You know what TJ can do. He's solid. And that's the other reason I think he's going to play a lot. I mean, I think Gannon just feels like he can really trust TJ Edwards to be in the right place, to do the right thing, to line up the other guys if he has to. He's just a solid guy.
Yeah, he really is. There were some fun individual plays in this practice. We saw a couple deep balls from Jalen Hurts. Some hits, some misses. He threw one to Deion Kane down the sideline, beat Darius Slay. Beat Slay a couple times today. Devontae Smith got him, too, on a deep ball on a go route. But then there was another one.
The Dean Kane catch was my play of the day, by the way.
Was it?
Yeah, it was my play of the day.
I didn't like that
only
one.
Like 20 plays all day.
So. I thought the one to Devontae was better on the left sideline.
Yeah. I had a better angle on the Dean Kane one. I was in the end zone.
Isn't Dean Kane the Superman guy?
Yeah, Dean Kane.
Deion
Kane is the football player. Dean Kane is the former Princeton football player, I believe, who became Superman in the Lois Lane series or whatever it was called. Yeah.
Oh, I used to watch those Supermans.
Yeah, it was a good show. But I believe that's Dean Kane. I always called Deion Kane by mistake.
Different guys.
Yeah, just I call Hassan. How many times have I called Hassan Reddick, Hassan Ridgeway?
Yeah, that one.
Both Eagles defensive.
Yeah, that one makes a little more sense. But there were some good plays. There was, it's funny because Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown are best friends. They've thrown together a ton, but they're still working through learning how to play with one another. They were not on the same page today. And it's funny to think about it, but you're like that and we bring up Devontae Smith last year. He had played with Jalen Hurts, and there was still that process of learning how to play together again. They're going to have to figure that out because the first one was underthrown, the second one was overthrown. They just got to work it out.
Yeah, and it's funny because that's going to be a big storyline. These guys are best friends. They throw together all the time. It's a completely different animal throwing at a high school baseball field somewhere and actually taking live reps at the NovaCare complex. It's just a different thing, and it's going to take him some time. And that would be the case with any new receiver. So I wouldn't worry about it, but it's a work in progress, certainly.
One thing I noticed today, and I expect to see this more and more, at times we saw AJ and Quez Watkins was another guy who wasn't at practice, so that changes some of the depth chart type things. But we saw AJ Brown in the slot at times, and we even saw Devontae Smith in the slot. Those guys are going to be kind of interchangeable.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Especially AJ. AJ Brown on the slot is something they can really take advantage of.
I like that. I like AJ in the slot. I think interchangeability and versatility are just two themes you're going to hear on both sides of the ball all year. I mean, you're going to have different receivers in the slot. You're going to have backs lining up in the out wide. You're going to have safeties playing. You're just going to have guys in different positions. Weak side linebackers moving to Mike. You're going to have. It's going to be constant change, and you got to have smart players to have that. They got to have tremendous mastery of the system and understanding of every position to do it. It's a lot to ask, especially the young guys, but I think that's the goal.
Yeah. I'm just looking through my notes here a little bit. I thought Zach McPherson had a really nice play, a pass breakup. It was on a comeback, and he kind of ran the route, broke it up. He's their top backup corner.
Yeah.
And that's a good spot for him because we saw him in there last year. He held his own when he had to go in there. And when you bring in a play like Bradbury, like that's part of it that really matters too. It's that, all right, well, now the guy who would have been the starter is your top backup, and that just helps your depth all over.
Yeah, and the question is, how's he going to react to that? I mean, there was a point we thought Zach McPherson might be the starter. So you bring in a guy, and he's going to be the guy, and all of a sudden Zach McPherson's like, what's my role here? How do you react to that? Do you mope and feel sorry for yourself, or do you just say, I'm going to be the best cornerback I can be, and if however they use me, whether it's whether it's outside or inside or special teams, be ready for it. And you're going to get that chance at some point. How ready are you? And so it was good to see Zach McPherson make a play out there today. And I mean, he's an important guy in this team. Third corner. I mean, he's going to play at some point.
Yeah, I mean,
I thought he played okay last year. He didn't really flash, but he didn't do anything egregious either.
you take that rookie 4th round pick getting out there.
4th round corner, certainly you take that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
especially with a veteran on the other side, whether he was in there for Nelson or Slay. If you're a quarterback and you're looking at this saying, well, one side's got this 4th round rookie, the other side's got either a Pro Bowl caliber player or a veteran in the league, you're probably going to pick on the rookie a little bit. Now the Eagles defense, when you're in cover 2 a little bit, you can help them, but I didn't see him get picked apart or anything. Yeah. What was another thing? 41 on 41 crime. You see that play?
I don't think I did.
Jared Maiden, who wears 41 on defense, came up and, walloped.
Oh, yeah.
Britton Covey,
Yeah.
who is tiny.
He is.
We have to talk about that because Britton Covey, I think, has a chance to be a fan favorite because he's little and quick and he's got all this return skill. He was getting pummeled in an OTA with no pads today.
Yeah.
And it's just one day, but Maiden jumped on him and Britton Covey went flying, and later in the practice he went flying again. He's little.
He is, and I think you're right. He's going to be a training camp darling, but he's got an uphill fight here.
Yeah, I agree with that. What else is on my little sheet here? Oh, I have another one. We saw some packages.
I just remember you're in the same room as me.
We have some
right over there.
We have some packages today with 2 running backs, and it was kind of fun. The one play they had Kenny Gainwell split left. They had Boston Scott split right, and then they had receivers inside.
Right.
So, that's fun. And if it kind of draws your linebackers out of the middle of the field, and then, or it forces linebackers to cover receivers. Either way, that's a win.
Yeah.
And it's going to be fun to see them with some of those formations. They had another formation with Boston in the backfield, Gainwell in the slot, which is a little more prototypical. But having a guy like Gainwell, they're going to use him more and more split out.
Yeah, I think so. He's a good runner, but I think he's a very, very good receiver, and I think he'll be a big part of the passing game.
Jack Stoll had a nice catch.
You did.
It was in traffic. It was a great throw by Jalen that might have put Jack Stoll in the hospital if pads were on, but
yeah,
he threaded the needle, and it was a nice grab by Stoll. Who, it's weird, we saw Stoll show those hands last training camp, and then he caught 4 passes for 22 yards.
He wasn't really targeted. I mean, he might have been targeted 7 times.
Yeah.
I think Shane Steichen brought up
he's getting better at
Jack Stoll without even being asked, and he said he's coming along in the receiving game. I mean, if he doesn't have to be a 40 catch guy. If he can just catch a pass or 2 a game, I mean, that's going to make them so much more versatile because now, I mean, if he's on the field, you don't. If you're the defense now, if you don't throw to him, he's blocking, and you don't need to cover him. He's not going to run a pattern and be a threat. If you just catch a ball or 2 per game, now you're keeping the defense honest. You have another option there.
Yeah, I don't have much else here. We saw a few of the injured guys out there. One of them was Tyree Jackson, who has a big brace on his knee.
He does, yeah.
But he was moving around all right. He wasn't practicing. He was in stretch, and then, but we'll see how that comes along. I think it's going to be a stretch for him to be ready for the season.
Big brace on his right knee.
Yeah. All right, you got anything else for practice you saw?
No, and he's huge.
He's big.
I just can't get over how big that dude is.
J-Jaw looked okay.
Yeah, he did.
He made a catch. He looks a little bigger to me.
Yeah.
I still think he has a
uphill.
yeah, but I mean, hey, it,
Yeah.
oh, I know Jalen Rager today too. We know he's probably been going through it with the death of Jeff Gladney, but he wasn't there. So there were a bunch of guys who weren't here. No Fletcher Cox. It's all voluntary, but for the most part, they've had pretty good attendance from what I hear.
Yeah. Yeah. Good to see BG out there running around. That was, um, I mean, it's just, at his age, you just don't know that kind of injury. And, he kept saying we would run into him in, November and December. And like, he would promise us he'd be out there for OTAs. I'm like, I don't know, but he's out there. He's no restrictions. He looks good physically, and good for him.
Says he feels great, which with BG you always take with a grain of salt because he's always so optimistic. But I mean, him and Isaac Saimalu both back on the field for OTAs is a really good sign.
Right, that's true.
All right, the big thing today, and we kind of knew the situation that Shane Steichen had been calling the plays, but last year, so much of the talk from Steichen and from Nick Sirianni was about how it's this big collaboration. And sure, Shane Steichen's the one calling in the play to Jalen Hurts, but it's a collaborative effort, right? Well, Shane Steichen's calling the plays, and that's the plan going forward.
Yeah, and Shane really clarified. It was kind of vague. It was kind of hazy. We knew there was some sort of collaboration between the two, but neither one of them ever spelled out exactly what the process was. And yeah, like Dave said, um, we thought Nick was picking the play and Shane was the one who was literally calling it in. Um, but Shane's calling the plays, and he's going to call the plays this year. And we don't know exactly what week he took over. I would think it was somewhere around week 6 to 8, somewhere around there. I'm guessing. Um, when they stopped throwing 50 times a game, I would think is when he took over. Maybe the Detroit game. That's when they started running the ball and sticking with it. But he's the play caller, and he didn't hold back and explain it. He's like, I'm calling the plays, and it's collaborative. We're all, I mean, he mentioned, or Jalen actually mentioned, Brian Johnson and Kevin Patullo and Nick and himself. They all meet during the week and they have these plays they're comfortable with, and everything goes through Nick Sirianni. I mean, there's no plays that Nick doesn't want. It's not like Shane's calling plays Nick doesn't want to call. These are all plays they've talked about, and they've practiced and they've prepared. But Shane Steichen is the play caller for this team, and it allows Nick to coach the entire football team, and it really speaks volumes about Shane and Nick's trust level in him and how much they're on the same page. And I thought, it's funny because Nick has such a personality, and Shane has a good personality, but it doesn't really come through. But as play callers, I think Shane's got a real flair for it. I don't think Nick was very good at it.
Well, yeah, if he was good at it, he wouldn't have turned it over.
Doing it.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's probably why they kind of guarded that information a little bit last year.
Yeah.
Because if you're Nick, I mean, you're halfway through your first season as a head coach, and play calling was supposed to be a really big part of your responsibilities. So to give that all up, I mean, before the halfway point, around the halfway point, it's almost like an admission there. But there are so many things that go into being a head coach that it frees him up to do. I mean, there's a lot. He's dealing with the analytics side of it. He's got the challenge flag. He wants to have a hand in whatever Jonathan Gannon's doing on defense. And if you're the play caller, you kind of have to be locked and loaded and ready to get those calls in. So it's interesting, but you're right. I think Shane has a good feel for it. Now, the problem would be, if Shane kills it this year and they're a good team, then you worry about losing your play caller.
Yeah, well, that's a worry.
Yeah, am I getting ahead of myself a little
worry for another day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because, Shane certainly didn't interview for any head coaching jobs or anything, but yeah, I mean, he's got, if Jalen Hurts takes a big step forward and he's got AJ Brown now and Zach Pascal, and this offense is pretty good. It's pretty loaded with weapons. Goddard is back, and Devontae's back. Now that the league knows who's calling the plays, if the Eagles offense averages 27 points a game, the Eagles make the playoffs. Shane Steichen becomes a candidate for head coaching jobs. I don't think there's any question that would happen.
Yeah, and I think a big part of what they were kind of saying about how Nick sets up and then Shane kind of calls it in. It's basically like during the week they go through situational football. So like they have a group of plays that they like in the red zone, or they have a group of plays they like when they're backed up or in third down situations. So they've gone through these scenarios and like, all right, these are our red zone plays, and then Shane picks from one of those. So it's not like he has the full menu. I guess if he wanted to call a different play, he could. They have it and they know what they are, but I think that's kind of what guided their philosophy a little bit was, they kind of lay and every team does this, they lay the groundwork, but it is, there's a feel to it, or as Nick Foles would say, there's a feel to it, trying to go through and know what and it's funny, we talk so much about Jalen Hurts in the second year of an offense. Well, second year with the same play caller matters too. Those guys have to get on the same page and understand. I mean, if you're Jalen Hurts, you're the quarterback, you kind of want to have an idea of what's coming in.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt about it. And it seems like they're all in lockstep. It seems like they all speak the same language. They all share a vision for the offense. I think it's a pretty good situation. Yeah, it's certainly the way it was described to us last year just seemed unwieldy. It just seemed like there was an extra step added.
Yeah, even when Nick was calling the plays, it was still Shane calling them in.
Right. But now, I mean, Shane's doing it all. So that extra step that we presume doesn't exist.
I'd like to think that there was one time where Nick gave Shane a play and Shane went, "Nah, I want to call this one." They called it, it worked, and Shane went like, "All right, I'm taking over." That's not how it happened.
Yeah, that's like, yeah. He's good at it. I think he's good at it. And there was a guy who kept messaging me on Twitter last year saying, Shane Steichen's calling all the plays. I'm like, no, he's calling them in, and the guy's like, look, I sit there and watch with the binoculars, and he is calling the plays, and the guy swore, and he was right.
Yeah.
And I would watch, and it looked like, he was, but we were being told that he was just calling in plays that he was getting from Nick.
Well, that was the way it was early in the year.
Yeah. But there was no way for us to really know.
Well, the only thing I thought was that, like Shane, I knew Shane was picking the plays. I thought he was picking them from like
a
limited menu. Yeah. He had the full menu.
Yeah, he had the full menu. Interesting, very interesting stuff.
Yeah. Front office.
And Shane, one other thing on Shane.
Yeah.
If you're a fan that watches all the Eagles press conferences, and they're all streamed live, Shane Steichen didn't say much last year. Very nice guy. If you're just on the field BSing, he's a very affable guy. But his press conferences were brutal. He was good today.
It was good.
He kind of,
it's a tough spot to be in as an offensive coach under an offensive head coach, or an offensive coordinator on an offensive head coach.
Well, now that he's senior play caller, maybe he's a little empowered. But,
yeah.
He was kind of illuminating, and it was good to see.
Yeah. Front office stuff.
Yeah.
So this is let's backtrack a little bit to the Julian Laurie stuff.
Sure.
It was reported, and we kind of knew something like this was going to happen, but Bo Wolf of The Athletic was the first one to report an official role and title for Julian Laurie in the Eagles front office. This is a good thing, and you wrote it. You did a really good job in your column explaining why, but I don't understand how anyone can think this is a negative.
Yeah, I just think, and I'll tell you what I think. I just think we're so conditioned to seeing, like rich kid gets his way. Rich kid gets handed the yacht, the family yacht. Rich kid gets this. Rich kid gets that. Rich kid who didn't put in the work, but he has put in the work, and he is putting in the work. But I just think, we're kind of conditioned to resenting people who have obscene wealth.
That's fair.
And look, it's not Julian Lennon's fault. His dad.
Lennon. You just said Lennon.
Julian Laurie's fault. I did see Julian Lennon play once with the, but I'm not going to get into that. I saw George Harrison's son, Dahani.
Julian Lennon is a big fan of Dean Cain.
Julian,
I was talking to him at practice today.
and Dahani,
Julian Lennon walked over and said, that Dean Cain had a really nice catch up.
Dahani Harrison's son, George Harrison's son, Dahani Harrison, who I'll probably
Dahani Jones?
Dahani Jones. They're the only two Dahanis I know. But anyway, yeah, I saw them both play separately, like about like a month apart a few years ago. But anyway, Julian Lurie, it's not his fault that his dad's worth $3.5 billion and he hasn't done anything wrong. And, you know, he's rolled up his sleeves. He spent 2 years in the NFL rotation program, just learning the ins and outs of the league. And now he's learning in case he wants to own the team and be handed control of the franchise from his dad. He's doing the work that he needs to do to prepare for it. He's learning about the business side. He's learning about football ops. He's probably learning about marketing. He's learning about everything. He's asking questions. I don't understand why, you know, people would resent that just because he's wealthy. Being wealthy in itself isn't a bad thing. There's a lot of wealthy people that are bad people because of how they, you know, treat other people and employees and what they do with their wealth. But that's a little deep. I don't want to go there, but you know, I think you got to feel like if he takes over the franchise, it's in good hands. I don't think anything's imminent in the next year or two, but Jeff Lurie is 70. He'll be 71 in September. He's owned the team 10 years longer than anybody else. He bought the team in '94 from Norman Brayman for $185 million, which seems like a bargain now.
Quite a bargain.
It's worth $3.5 billion. And he's doing what he has to do to be prepared for that day. Now, it's like I wrote, like if he was partying in South Beach with daddy's money or you know, riding you know, across Europe in a yacht, in the family yacht, not across Europe, but across like the Mediterranean Sea. You can't ride a yacht across the continent. I understand that.
It was on a truck, maybe.
And yeah, it could have been. But, you know, seriously, like if he was, you know, this irresponsible, you know, burning through daddy's dollars and traveling and partying and drinking, and he goes to work every day.
Which, by the way, I wouldn't begrudge him.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. He might be doing that as well, yeah. But he's
in Mobile, Alabama.
I mean, he was in Mobile, Alabama at the Senior Bowl. He was. I mean, he's doing what he needs to do to be ready, and he's working. He goes to work every day. He sits at a desk and he works, and that's a good thing. And you know, we don't even know for sure he's going to take over the team. I think it's pretty good likelihood at this point. I mean, I don't think he would be doing this if he wasn't interested in it. This is a kid who he grew up around this franchise. I mean, he was born the year after his dad. We think he was born in '95, the year after his dad bought the team, the year he took full control. So he's lived in Philadelphia his whole life. He's grown up around the Eagles. This is all he knows. He's got a devotion for the franchise. He's got a passion for the job. And would you rather have some big multinational corporation that couldn't care less about the team and just wants to buy it for an investment? No. I mean, there's been some bad owners in this city. And look, I don't know that Julian Lurie is going to be a good owner, but I know he's putting in the work to increase his chances of that.
Yeah, I think part of it, and we'll get to the other guy who's a part of this, Alec Halaby, who is getting promoted. I think there's a little bit of a fear of the next wave in the NFL being so analytics driven, and right. Julian himself being a Harvard grad and having a long relationship with Halaby, who's now his voice has been growing within the organization. And I think there's like a natural clash between the analytics aspect of football and the football guy out on the road scouting players. And the Eagles have worked really hard to try to mesh those worlds, and they're going to continue to try to do that. But I think that's the fear, is that it represents to some people that when Julian eventually takes over, that he's going to push all the football guys out, all the nerds are going to take control, and that they're going to pencil push their way to creating a roster. And I think there's always going to be a balance, but I think part of that is kind of true, is that the analytics world is taking over a little bit, and the Eagles want to be on the cutting edge of that, and they kind of have been.
Yeah, and I think there's a misconception that analytics replaces like, I mean, I used to sit in the dugout and listen to Charlie Manuel talk about, prospects and stuff. And like, there's nobody who's been less analytics driven than Charlie Manuel. He's just an old baseball guy who, you know, had gut instincts about players. And I think there's room for that. I think analytics is just another tool that you use. And I think it's a valuable one. But I think, look, Howie Roseman is always going to believe in the scouting side. He's going to surround himself with as many good scouts and old school football guys as possible. And he's going to listen to them, and he's going to listen to the analytics people. And ideally, like you said, those two schools are going to mesh, and you make the best possible decision. I think analytics, when used correctly, is a really valuable supplement to the scouting process, but I don't think it's ever going to replace it.
Yeah, and that kind of leads us to the next topic here, because the Eagles are promoting two internal guys to the roles of assistant general manager. They're finally going to have two assistant GMs, something they haven't done before. And neither guy comes from the scouting world. It's going to be Alec Halaby, who's kind of the analytics guy, and John Ferrari, who's kind of been a football ops, um, former league employee who doesn't come from that scouting world. So I think there's a perception that might not be wrong, that you start to wonder, well, how are they going to replace the football guys? Because they lost Ian Cunningham and they lost Brandon Brown and now they lost Andy Weidel. Like, how do you replenish that?
Yeah, and I think there's football people in the building that Howie really values. There's other guys he's hiring who are old school, traditional football guys. It's interesting. Like, I was thinking about this today. Like, how do you define a football guy? Like, we don't think of Howie Roseman as a football. He's not a football guy. I mean, he was a general manager that built a Super Bowl roster. So to me, that makes you a football guy. Like, if
yeah, I think it's just
it just whether you play the game or not?
No. I think it's a non-traditional path to becoming in power of a team. So his path is obviously very non-traditional. I think when you think of football guys, either they play the game, they coach the game, or they came up in the scouting world and they paid their dues as like a low-level area scout and worked their way up.
Yeah, that's probably fair. Like, Joe Douglas is the ultimate football guy.
Yeah, ultimate football guy.
He looks.
Let's talk about ankle flexion.
Yeah,
for a half hour.
He just looks like he should be playing right tackle.
Guard. He's a guard.
Whatever. I still can't believe that was him in Manhattan Beach.
I mean, I believe it. There aren't many Joe Douglas.
That guy looks just like Joe Douglas. The next day, hey, Joe, were you in Manhattan Beach? Yeah. Why'd you say hi to me?
I mean, a giant guy with like a size 15 hat walking down the street is probably Joe Douglas.
Yeah, well, wrong again, Rube. Yeah, I think it's fair, and I understand that. And look, there's gonna be a lot of new people and new positions and new roles, and we'll get the official list, I would think, Monday.
But we know they are. They're promoting some of the scouts they really like.
Yeah.
Ryan Myers, Phil Baya, a few others. They're bringing in Brandon Hunt from Pittsburgh, who is a football guy. He's more on one side than the other. That's the one thing. We thought they were really gonna have their pro personnel guys and their college personnel guy, and it kind of have like those two directors of player personnel like they had with Ian and Brandon, and but they're really not going to have that. They're going to have to restructure a little bit differently than I think they wanted to. And I think they were a little taken aback that Andy left. I think that they thought if he gets the GM job, he's gone. But if he doesn't get the GM job, he'll probably be back. And that wasn't the case.
Yeah. And his wife's family is from Pittsburgh.
His first job was there.
And if I'm thinking if Andy Weidel got that job earlier, Howie probably would have been able to keep Ian Cunningham or Brandon Brown.
Or if this rule that the Eagles proposed to basically create a hiring window after the draft had taken place, he could have then promoted Ian or Brandon into either Andy's job or into one of these assistant general manager positions that he's created. And that's really the reason I think they put that rule forth, not just because it kind of screwed them before the draft, but because they lost at least one of those guys that they probably could have retained.
Yeah, it was a unfortunate sequence of events. And look, these are, these are guys that Howie really likes and he knows and he's comfortable with, and he's known most of them for a long, long time. But this is a major front office shakeup, and it's a major change. And these guys all left for promotions, and individually, it all makes sense. I mean, Catherine Ray. I mean, as soon as Andrew Barry, I mean, she reported to Andrew Barry here when he got the GM job in Cleveland. I mean, it was kind of made sense that she was going to go there and follow him there. So individually, each move made sense, is understandable. Taking it as a whole, this is like a major shakeup.
It's major, and the Hallaby one is the hire that people are going to be nervous about.
Sure,
because it's non-traditional, it's very analytic driven, and I think there's good and bad in that. Honestly, I think that if you're an organization, you have to kind of find the right balance, and no one really knows what that is, and you have to make sure both sides that it's not contentious, because it's so naturally contentious, right? Like if you're a football guy, you think, oh, these nerds are taking over. If you're one of the nerds, you're thinking,
I'm so much smarter than that.
I'm so much smarter than that guy. What is he thinking? He's just, he's a caveman. So you have to, the nerds and the caveman have to find common ground. And I mean all these terms very affectionately, by the way.
You don't.
I do.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. I don't want emails. That's all. No emails, no tweets.
It's interesting. It's going to be, and I mean, look, we won't know for a couple of years how this is all playing out. These are, like I wrote a couple of weeks ago, you can't see these guys in mini camp. You just don't know until you see what kind of roster they build next year and the year after. And it's a big change.
Yeah. Got anything else on that before we move on?
No, I find all this stuff really, really interesting. No,
it is. And it's the titles themselves, I think, convolute it all, because the titles are like, they could be anything. It's just about what the actual job is that matters. And sometimes it's really hidden about what the actual job is. The titles are so wacky sometimes.
So a lot of the guys are picking their own titles, I believe,
or at least presenting a title that
you have a big meeting. You're going to get promoted. What do you want to be? I'll be senior director of operational strategy. I mean, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
But hey, it looks good on a nameplate in the NovaCare.
I mean, even Jeffrey Lurie is chairman and CEO.
Yeah.
Just call him the owner.
Yeah,
he's the owner.
I don't. What do you call him?
Jeff. Hey, J Bone.
Been at Chili's lately, Jeff?
Did we ever tell that story here?
I don't know if we did.
Are we allowed?
Why not?
Okay. So it was before a few years ago, Lincoln Financial Field. They were like, well, this is going to be a big press conference with major news. So Reuben and I both went thinking, all right.
Stood out there in the rain.
Yeah, like major news is coming. And we're standing in the hallway with Jeff Lurie, just chatting with them. And we're like, what's this news? Oh, it's nothing. it's basically the link was staying the link. The naming rights were pushed back.
Extended the naming rights.
Yeah. So we're talking to Jeff Lurie about, what did you do? What are you doing this summer? And it was a friendly conversation. And he says, oh, I took my family to Chile for a few weeks. And Rube goes, oh, Chili's. I love their Southwest egg rolls. And Jeff Lurie goes, oh, like a Chili's restaurant. And the idea of Jeff Lurie's not going to Chili's. He should. I love Chili's.
I'll bet he's been to Chili's.
I think so.
Yeah.
Those Southwestern egg rolls are good. I'll give them that.
Yeah.
It's like a day's worth of calories in one of those
things.
Send them
some.
We should. Care package. That's a good segue here. We're talking about food. Jordan Davis.
Oh, yeah. I got to show my go ahead.
Yeah.
Set it up.
Yeah. Talking to Jordan Davis today is fun. I think fans are really going to like him. First off, he's a very affable guy, really comfortable right away. Sometimes you see a rookie come in and they're a little timid at first, and they're not really sure how much they can.
Does this guy look timid?
They can give their. Yeah, look at him. He was having a blast.
He's pretty
today.
sharp.
Yeah, he's fun. But we were talking about food with him for a while, and he's talking about he's had great cannoli in town. He hasn't tried the barbecue yet, but he knows really good restaurants. And I'm thinking to myself, well, the last time we talked to you, Jordan, we're talking about how you need to cut weight. And he's doing that, and I think that it's going to be really important for him to figure out how to be a pro. And a big part of that for him is going to be to maintain the right weight, the right body composition to get the most out of his body.
Yeah, and I think he could get away with not being in great shape at Georgia because they had like 25 first round picks on that defense. He could get away with playing 25, 30 snaps and being in not ideal shape. But I thought he looked good. He said he has been, and it was funny because he was talking about cannolis, but he said he has been really carefully. They developed.
You're allowed a cannoli here or there.
Nutritional plan. The Eagles have a staff nutritionist. So I thought he looked good. I thought he looked better today than the last time we saw him, which I guess was after the draft.
Mm-hmm.
So about April, mid-April, late April. So he's and I mean the big thing with him is he's got to be a force late in games. He's got to be a force getting after the quarterback. He's got to be a force on first down, second down, third down. And to do all that, you can't be 345. So whatever that good number is for him, whether it's 330, 333, I don't know. But
I think 335 is the right place.
I think that might be a really good place for him. So if they can do that, I think he'd be a really effective player. And he's got that luxury this year of, with Hargrave and Fletch, he doesn't have to be a every down player. He can come in. I mean, he's going to come in because Fletch and Hargrave are going to start, and he's going to come in. Maybe he'll play some 3-4, and just wreak havoc, and then go back to the bench. I think it's going to be a really good situation for him.
The one thing he did mention today that I found interesting was that he's learning multiple positions. We knew we would learn them, but he's learning the 0, he's learning the 4-eye, and he's learning the 5-tech. So, we could see him at defensive end here or there, which is fun. I mean, the Eagles have done that in the past with Fletcher. Imagine, putting Jordan Davis out there, and then not that they're going to do it often, but he's so athletic that it's not crazy.
No, again, it comes down to
imagine him eating a double team from the 5-tech.
I know, and again, it comes down to versatility and showing offenses looks that they're not expecting that create mismatches. And the more good players you have, the more talented players you have, the more ways you can do that. And every single player they got this offseason on both sides of the ball has that versatility. And I think that's just going to be like the theme of this season. And if they can get Jordan Davis in good enough shape to play that, that's going to be a huge plus.
Yeah. Anything else from today that you wanted to talk about?
No, it's just fun. It was fun being out there. We talked to Jalen a little bit. He spoke very passionately about gun violence in the U.S. and how much it's affected him, and how he wants to find ways to be an agent of change, and talked about all the
He's
guns.
very cognizant of his platform.
Yeah, he is. A few guys talked about it, but Jalen was just really, really passionate. Really spoke from the, he spoke about,
He had an opening statement. He had things he wanted to say.
Yeah. So, really mature kid. Look, it has nothing to do with playing quarterback, but, well, it doesn't.
Maturity aspect.
Yeah, but, it was, it was a powerful message, and it was good to hear from him.
Yeah, it was. I give him credit. Because he has put himself out there a little bit by saying it. And the Eagles had their whole gun violence awareness campaign. They were wearing orange on the field for Wear Orange campaign. So they do stuff. They're not just talk about it. They were then auctioning off all those practice jerseys today to benefit good causes. And they're having a gun. They call it a gun exchange at the link. Is that the terminology? Yeah. So you can find that date, and it's basically like no questions asked. You bring an unloaded gun, keep it in your trunk, drop it off. You get $100. So.
And then Connor Barwin's concert's coming up for his foundation with Yola Tango and Japanese breakfast at the Dell.
I know Yola Tango.
Really?
I do.
Really?
Yeah.
You ever seen him?
I've not. Maybe I'll go to Connor's concert.
Yeah, should be fun. Yola Tango's great live band. I've seen it about 5-6 times.
Okay. let's wrap this up. If you enjoy the Eagle Eye
I'm going to
podcast,
run down my 10 favorite Yo La Tango songs.
please rate. We'll do that right after this ends. Please rate and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button and subscribe there as well. We apologize for the late podcast this week. We thought it was important to get out there at OTAs and actually give you some substance instead of fluff like we normally do at this time of year. We'll be back with you next week. For Reuben, I'm Dave. We'll talk soon.